So you have invoices with line items and you're looking to somehow automate the entire process and have invoices automatically be created and sent to your clients. Lucky for you, you've come to the right place, and that's exactly what you're going to learn how to do in this video. Guys, welcome back to Josh No Code. And I am super excited to be able to walk you through this topic. I know that working with line items may feel daunting at times, but hopefully this video should clear a lot of things up and make it easier for you guys to implement in your Zaps. Now, as some of you may know, I already created a full tutorial on QuickBooks, specifically how to create invoices and send them to clients automatically with Zapier. But one of you guys actually asked the question, what if you have different line items on an invoice and not just one, and you have to match them? This is a very, very common with invoices that you have multiple line items. So yeah, that's exactly what this video today is going to cover. Now, before we proceed further, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on to follow more of my content on business process automation. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to be setting up our trigger. So we set up this form that handles line items. It is a fake store, and this store sells beer. And we are going to take the data from our store and we are going to send it to QuickBooks. And we're going to send it to create the invoices. But before we could do that, we need to format the data to support line items. So that's going to be the second step in the process after we set up our trigger. And then we're going to create the invoices and have the invoices be sent to clients. So that's basically the full agenda for the video. And at the end, I'm going to show you how, instead of Jotform, instead of having a form to send the data, how you could create invoices and send the invoices from Google Sheets. So with that said, let's jump into Jotform. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so here we are in Jotform, and we already went ahead and created our form for this fictional customer called Island Beverage Co. They're pretty awesome wholesale beer distributor, and their admin personnel uses this form right here to be able to generate invoices when they take orders from customers. And then after they have the invoices generated, those invoices are then sent to the customers. So this form is divided into two important sections. You have the general invoice info, which is contains information like your customer name, billing, email. This is where the invoice will be sent. And you have the billing address. Sometimes you might have the shipping address. You have the invoice due date, when that invoice is due. And then this is not on the invoice, but for this form here, we have a field here that determines the number of line items we want to see on the form. So it's just limited to 3 right now. And if we scroll down, the second most important piece of this form here are the line items, right? So you have line item 1 through 3 here. This is going to be the first line item. And that line item is a row in your invoice. And so you have your product and or service. You have the product ship date. You have the quantity. You have the rate. You have the amount. And then if you scroll down here, you have line item 2, which is going to be the second line item. And if you scroll down here, you have the line item 3. And all of these fields here, basically in line item 3, they match, they're the same fields. As I click on this, you see a list of products that are just populated. I literally just populated them in here as text. And these products listed have to exactly match the products as they're displayed in the product section of QuickBooks for your account. So if there's a spelling mistake and you have Bud Light in QuickBooks as a product, and then you type in here Bud Light 1, then that's going to cause the Zap to error out. So make sure whatever product and or service you have listed in this dropdown here, they have to exactly match what's in QuickBooks. So that's the first thing. Product ship date, pretty standard stuff, just standard date field. You have quantity. I just put quantity 1 through 5 here for the products we want. The quantity is a case of beer. And for rate, this is how much our customer is paying per case of beer. And for the amount, it's simply a calculation of the quantity times the rate. So if I say, let's just say I'm going to buy some Allagash beer, and I am going to select a quantity of 3. I need 3 cases, and each case goes for $10. Then the total amount for this line item 3 is going to be $30. So that basically covers the line items here. You may think to yourself, you know, okay, how did you set up the line items here? I have some conditional formatting or conditional logic to determine when the line items display. So if I have line item 2 here, I'll only see 2 line items here. Again, the third one is missing. If I have only 1 line item selected here, you know, I'll only see 1 line item. Line item 2 and 3 will be missing, and you could have as many line items as you want, up to the total number of fields that Jotform limits. I'm not going to get into the conditional, like how I set it up specifically. I'll just show you how I went about doing it. So with Jotform, you have conditional formatting, and I'll show you where that is here. So you go into edit your form. Form's loading up, form builder. So in settings here, you want to go here where it says conditions, and you go ahead and click on your conditions. And you can see here is just some conditions I set up for the form to be able to display the number of line items we want, line item fields, line items 1 through 3. And then we also just have some conditional logic to calculate the amount, which is just quantity times your rate. And that's it for Jotform. So let's go ahead, let's jump into Zapier, and I'm going to show you guys how to set up this Zap. Okay, so here we are in Zapier. I already set up this Zap, and I'm just going to walk you through it, what we need to do. So here's our trigger right here. It's a new submission in Jotform. The event is a new submission. That means it's just going to trigger when a new submission has been added to a specific form. You know, I have my account set up, and then the form that we selected is create an invoice. I tested it, it works. And we have a submission here from the form and all the specific fields within that form, including the line items. And you could just see here we have line item 1 and then all the information related to line item 1. And I strongly recommend when you set this up, for the fields that pertain to each line item, just kind of denote them. I put in parentheses line item 1, so I know that the product, this field here refers to line item 1, as well as the quantity, rate, amount. And I did the same thing with line item 2 and line item 3, just as a way to kind of associate them very easily. And you could see that if we scroll up, we have the general invoice information that I covered before in the form. And that's basically the trigger step. Test that out. Make sure you receive a submission in Jotform. The next thing that we do, pretty simple step here, just create a customer in QuickBooks, because in order to successfully create an invoice in QuickBooks, QuickBooks needs to be able to associate the invoice with the customer. So yeah, just for full name, you just add the name of the customer. You map the field from Jotform, which is just customer name that's in the general invoice info. And you could have other information populate here if you're creating a new customer and you want to have that information, such as their email or phone or address, whatever you want. But we'll leave all that empty for now. And yeah, so we create our customer. We tested that out, and we have our customer that was created in QuickBooks, which we just call test customer 1. It's displayed as test customer 1. So if you check in QuickBooks, you'll be able to see that customer that's there. And if you, if you test this out and it just doesn't run, I always check QuickBooks, but if it doesn't run, then it probably just didn't get created in QuickBooks. Anyhow, moving to the next step, this is the most important part of this video right here. So we add a step to basically create line items from each of the line item fields. And specifically what we want the event, we use Zapier formatter. So go into utilities, and from utilities, the specific action that you want is you're going to use transform text to line item. So this is just converting a bunch of text into line items that are going to be listed out. And we're going to just, in this single step that pertains to products, right, we're basically turning the products into line items, right? Line items 1 through 3. So if you have, let's say 20 line items, and you want to be able to turn all the products into the various, from all the rows into line items, what you're basically going to do is you're just going to go here and you're going to be able to list out the products from each of the line items. So you can see, that's why I said it earlier, it's important to be able to write in the description of the field what each field pertains to. So if you have product, right, you can see here, product, line item 1. Okay, I know the product. This product here refers to line item 1. Comma, include your comma, and then you can see products, line item 2. So I know if you think of, okay, here's product, line item 1, line item 2, line item 3, but we're talking about products. So we just want to list them out in order, and yeah, so that we're creating effectively a list. And when you test it out, basically your output here should be the line items. So you have, this was for line item 1, Bud Light was the selection that was made. Line item 2, Allagash. Line item 3, Red Stripe. Line item 1, line item 2, line item 3. So hopefully that clears things up. Just put it all in one step into a list, and it will produce your line items as the output. Okay, so that covers the products, and everything else is going to follow the same format, right? We're going to continue to use the text to line item utility step in Zapier formatter. And this is converting the product ship dates to line items. So again, we're talking about product ship dates, and we're just putting them in order, right? Line item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And don't worry too much about the blank values. Like if you make a submission and you only submit for one line item 1 and 2, and you have like 5 line items listed in the form, it's just going to take those as empty values. And yeah, there's another step you could add here to be able to remove the extra line item fields that this Zap produces. That involves kind of a code step to remove the extra fields. I'm not going to cover that in this video, but I certainly can include that, basically a link to figure that step out, so you can see for yourselves. It's just a code step. You're adding some JavaScript. There's some code to remove extra line items that are empty, because that may cause extra line items to be produced, but I wouldn't worry about that too much because most of you probably won't need that level of sophistication. But if you do, just let me know. Anyways, moving on to the next section. Here we're just converting the rates into line items. It's exactly the same as step 4 and step 3. And then 6 just converts all the quantities to line items. Again, just the same. All of these are just following converting to line items using utilities, putting everything in order, and the output is just producing line items here. And lastly, the amounts. Amounts are just text to line item, and we're putting them into order, and we test them out. It's going to produce a list. Okay, so now we add a find products in QuickBooks step here, and for the action, how we set this up is basically we're going to be taking the output of step 3, which is basically right here. And you could see here, the output was Bud Light, Allagash, Red Stripe. And so what this step does is it basically is going to search QuickBooks for the products in that are available for your account. So that's why it's very important for the spelling to exactly match in order to create a successful match. And when we test it out, it's basically just going to return the list of products that were found. So it found a product named Bud Light as 1, found a product named Allagash, that was 2. They found a product named Red Stripe in QuickBooks, and that was 3. So that's that. And the next thing we're doing, which is the final step here, is to actually create the invoice. So you need to be able to associate the invoice with the customer, as I mentioned before. So just go to custom here, go down to the second step here, which is basically your customer, and what you want to do is then select the ID, which is 65. So that is the ID of the customer that was created in step 2. And then for the email, you can just pull the email address from your form, which is here. You just type in email and you see billing email, and it shows my emails there. And yeah, so that's what you need to map there. Everything else here, there's a lot of empty fields here that we don't need to worry about right now. Due date, this is coming from the general info in the form. Just type in due date so you can see invoice due date. Here it is. That's from your trigger step. And invoice number. So I didn't talk about this. I actually should have, but in the Jotform, I have this field that creates a random number. And so this is just pulling the invoice number is being pulled from the trigger step 1, invoice number 002. So it's being pulled from step 1. But that's a field that's invisible in the Jotform. That's just creating a random ID. And you could make your invoice number anything you want. And actually, if you don't even have anything in this field here, then what's going to happen is QuickBooks is automatically going to generate a unique invoice ID for you. So that's the general info, which was the top half of the form. Best way to think about it. And then we get into the fun part of this. We have the line items. Okay, so for this, what we did here was we put everything into line items. So if we look at the service date, basically service date is going to match up to the ship date. So if we go to step 4 here, we could see that. We have convert all product ship dates to line items, and we just use the output of this step here to fill that specific field. So let's go here, show you, scroll down. Okay, yeah, so you see this is for the output of step 4 for the ship date, and then product and services. So this one, what we did here is we don't use the output of converting the products into line items. We're not using the output, which is step 3. We're not doing that. We're basically using the output of step 8 because it finds the product, so it's going to return the IDs effectively of the products we want. So if I scroll down here, there should be an ID. See, you see ID 7. Each product has an ID. ID 9, ID 11. So going down to the create invoice, you could see that it's basically just pulling the output of that to the ID of each product to be able to find the products. It can't. I tried doing this with just the plain text of the products, using the line item outputs, the output of the line item step, but it just didn't work. So you need to use the IDs, and then quantity. This is just pulling the output straight from the line item, text to line item, quantity step, and then same thing for rate. It's just basically pulling the output of the line item of rate, and then the line items of the amount. Just all for the steps above, 6, 5, and 7, which you could see right here. So just pull the outputs of these right here and populate them right in. And I'll just show you what that looks like really quick. So, if I just search for amount, or let's just go into amount, convert all line items. You can see here, this is exactly what you want to grab. So you want to see this field here, 3690.27 for these line item steps. Punch that in and you're all good to go. Okay, so that's what we need to be able to create this invoice here. I believe I have another invoice that's exactly the same as this already created. If this error is out, then it means I just have the same invoice created. So let me just test this out. If we have the invoice created, then I'm just going to delete the invoice. Let's see. Oh, never mind. Okay. Let's see what happened. Okay, so yes, we created an invoice successfully. So which means I didn't have an invoice already created in QuickBooks. So this is already created. This is all good to go. This ran. And let's get this sent to our email. So in order to do this, you just send invoice in QuickBooks Online, and the event you want to send invoice, and the action here to set it up. You basically just pull the ID of the invoice. So if I go into step 9, you could see here there should be an ID here, 2125 for this invoice. So basically you're just pulling the ID of the invoice from the step below, just going into custom, and the email for billing, this is where the invoice is getting sent. So I just go into my trigger step, and you can just search for billing email, and this is just my own email that I had entered into the form. So I go and I just click continue and just want to get this resent to my email address, and then it just sent. So let's go ahead and check the email to see if we received this invoice, and also see what it looks like. Okay, so this is the invoice we just received from QuickBooks. It says new invoice, invoice number from Island Beverage Co. We scroll down, $153, and here's the due date. I'm just going to open this up so we could see what the invoice looks like in the PDF. So here you see, okay, so we have the invoice number. This was the ID that was randomly generated in the Jotform. We have, this is the current date, the 13th, and then the due date is the date that we selected on the little calendar widget. And this is all just the general invoice info, the info that was above the line items in the form. And then here are line items, right? This is line item 1 that we produced. This is line item 2, and this is line item 3. We have the ship date for line item 1, 3/15, and then we have the product, which is Bud Light. We have a quantity of 3, $12, total amount for 36. And so that's the info with the line items. It all successfully came to populate right here. And the balance due is $153, and that's just the sum of all the amounts here. So now we know that this successfully ran, and that's what we need to do to be able to create these invoices with line items here. Just use that text to line item step, and you'll be all set. So the next thing I want to just cover in this video is how can we do all this from Google Sheets. So let's jump into Sheets, and then we'll jump back into Zapier, and I'll show you how we can do this and run a quick and final demo. Okay, so here we are in Google Sheets, and yeah, I know that this is going to be important for some of you guys. So basically the idea here is that we have like this spreadsheet that we're going to create entries in manually without a form, and we have a trigger here, and the trigger is basically just going to be like an entry in one of the columns, and that's going to trigger the whole invoice process. But yeah, make sure to just remember like the two parts of the invoice that you need. You need the general invoice info, which is basically the columns here. You have the customer name, invoice number, billing email, you have the address. Again, all these were matching the same fields in Jotform. And then you have your line items, right? So here is line item. Here are the fields for line items 1 through 5. I'm just gonna, actually line items just 1. Here's you can see right here, product ship date, quantity, rate, line, amount, all pertain to line item 1. Same thing for line item 2. We'll just give it a quick highlight. You can see the same fields. And then line item 3, you can see right here, all the fields that pertain to line item 3. So yeah, you're going to want to fill all of these out. Once you finish filling all of these columns out for the row, what's going to actually trigger this invoice process is an entry in this new column right here. So we created a new column called create/send invoice. I added some data validation here just to kind of make the process easy. So you have really two values here. So do not create/send invoice, pretty self-explanatory. This is kind of just like a neutral state. Like if you don't want your invoice to be sent, I mean, you could leave it blank, nothing's gonna happen, but you know, you just have this value populate here and it's not gonna send the invoice. But then you also have this value here, which is create/send invoice. So the idea is when you add this value into this row, when you set it to this value, that is gonna start the invoice process to be created, and it's gonna send it to the customer. You could, if you don't want the invoice to be sent to the customer, you just don't have to add that step into your Zap. You could just kind of leave it as, you know, create the invoice, and it'll just create the invoice in QuickBooks and it won't send it. Yeah, that's basically what you need for your spreadsheet to have it set up. Just make sure you have this column here. It's going to be very important. So let's go back into Zapier, and I'm going to show you how to get this implemented. So I went ahead and I set this all up, but basically for your trigger step, you get rid of the Jotform, and you just basically set up, you add sheets in here, and your trigger event is going to be new or updated spreadsheet row, and that's basically just going to trigger when a new row is added or modified in a spreadsheet. And it's going to be pretty instantaneous action. Trigger event, and then go ahead and just configure it. So here's our spreadsheet. It's called create and send invoice, create an invoice, and worksheet. This is the worksheets and form responses. And then for this is very important right here. You want to select your trigger column. So basically, it's saying that this fires off when it says, okay, whenever there is this column, a value in this column is updated for a row, this will trigger this Zap will fire off when that happens. So so it basically just detects when a new value comes through in that column, and yeah. Then the next thing what we want to do here is we want to add a filter, because we don't want it to just be like any value that kind of triggers this to send. We want it to specifically trigger when the value equals create/send invoice. So for condition, we just want to say like we add a filter. The field column is create/send invoice, and we make it exactly matches, and we say create/send invoice. So this way, I'm just going to test this out, make sure it works. Okay, so the Zap is going to continue. So this way, what's going to happen here, just to kind of summarize it, you're going to enter in a new row into the spreadsheet. You finish entering your row. Then you go to the last column that says create/send invoice, and then you make a change to it. So you change the value to either of the two options, like don't create/send the invoice. You set it to that, or you could send it to create/send invoice. And then what's going to happen, that's going to trigger this Zap here, because Google Sheets is going to detect that column was modified, a value in that for that specific row. And then it's going to go to this step here, which is basically just going to say like, okay, only proceed if the value in that column, create/send invoice, exactly matches create/send invoice. And so then it's going to, if that condition is met, then it's going to proceed to the next step, which we already know. It's create customer in QuickBooks. So it's going to then, what you're going to do is now you map the field from the spreadsheet. So you just go into your trigger, customer name, and then you're basically doing the same thing for the other steps in this Zap. For the products, again, it was mapped originally from Jotform, but now you're just doing it from Sheets, right? Line item 1, 2, 3 from the product section. And same thing just for all these fields here. The ship date, you can see it's just all the data is just coming from our trigger in Sheets. And so there's really nothing more to it. You're basically just substituting that step. You're adding in a condition to make sure it meets the condition you want. And then you're mapping the fields from Google Sheets into these line item steps so that they fill into the invoice. They populate into the invoice correctly. And when it gets sent to the customer, it's pulling the email address from Google Sheets. So I'm going to publish this Zap, and we're going to give it a run and just see if this works. Hey guys, so here we are back in Sheets, and we're going to see if this Zap works. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a new row, and I'm going to copy everything from row A to the final row AA. So let's go ahead and do that. So yes, let's go ahead, copy. We're going to paste this right below. And then what we're going to do here is just two things to be considerate of. Invoice number and your customer name need to be unique. So let's just make this some random number, 2100301, and then we're going to call this Hello Company 1. That's going to be the name of our company. And we're going to just change a few fields here in the general info section of the invoice. So we're going to just make the invoice due by this Friday, which is the 17th. And we're going to just make changes to the line items. So for line item 1, we're going to change the quantity. So let's just make everything a quantity of 1. So so we have basically for the amount for line item 1 is just going to be $8. For line item 2, we're going to do the same thing, just make it a quantity of 1, and then the final amount is going to be $12. And for line item 3, quantity of 1, actually let's do a quantity of 3, and we're going to make it $75. So that's what we'll change there. And then for ship date, let's just make this let's just make it by Wednesday. So let's just say they're going to receive it on the 15th. So let's just change that for all the line items here. Make it due on the ship date is going to be on the 15th. So good. So we made some changes here, and that should be reflected in the invoice. So let's go ahead and let's send this out. So we go to create/send invoice, and let's set the value to create/send invoice. So that is going to trigger the workflow. And now let's go into the email and see if we received the invoice. Okay, so we just received the invoice from QuickBooks, so we know this is working. And as you can see, you have the updated invoice ID 2010301, and we also see the new company name, Hello Company 1, which is these are two unique values to the company and to the invoice. And let's go ahead, open this up, just see if the values changed. So we have the updated invoice ID is reflected, as well as the due date, which is going to be the end of the week, 3/15, which is this Wednesday, where the products are going to be shipped. We didn't make any changes to the product, which is good. Basically, Bud Light Land Shark had quantity of 1, and Allagash had quantity of 3. And we have updated rates, and well, rates were the same, but updated amounts, so 8, 12, 75, for a grand total of $95. So just jumping back into the sheet, just some things I'd recommend here. I would recommend just making sure your products are pre-populated. You can use some data validation for that. Just will make things easier for selecting your products and services. And for the line items, I just recommend adding in some calculations here to multiply the quantity times the rate to calculate the amount. And that is about it here. So now you know how to basically create invoices, have them sent all from populating new rows in your Google worksheet. And I hope this was helpful. So there you have it. Now you know how to create invoices with line items using a form, and how to set that up with Zapier. You can use Jotform like we did today, or you can use Google Forms, you can use typeform, you can use any form application you want as long as it's with Zapier. And now you know how to do also the same thing with a simple Google spreadsheet. With the form and with the spreadsheet, as long as they are set up to handle line items listed, then you're going to be all set. You're going to be good to go. And the other thing that you learned today, which should be also very helpful for other Zaps that you create, is just the line item steps. You know, how to use text to line item to produce a list of line items so that you could plug in and to other steps. And hopefully that should all be very, very helpful. So I really look forward to seeing what you guys are going to create. And if you have any questions about this tutorial, please send them over. You know, my email is hello@joshnocode.com. I could also be reached via my website, which is joshnocode.com. And yeah, so a few of you guys have also asked if I offer consultation services around Zapier automation and Make as well, the other platform. And yes, gladly accepting new clients. Would love to work with you guys and be able to help you build new workflows, build new Zaps, work on projects, and if you have Zaps that are not working, also to help you out there. So if you're interested in learning more about that, definitely get in touch, and happy to help. Other than that, let me know if you have any questions. If you have ideas for future videos, drop them in the comments. I want to see them because I'm gonna produce more videos, and that's what this is all about. Just really helping everybody kind of learn and navigate this platform, become more efficient, save time with all these manual tasks, and so that we could be happier and more productive and do the things that we want to do. Alrighty guys, well, I will see you next time, and until then, sayonara.